right. Good morning, everybody. Today, I place the future in the hands of God. That's today's lesson 194. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me this morning. Got my book ready to go. Here is today's lesson of the day. Lesson 194. I place the future in the hands of God. Today's idea that I place the future in the hands of God takes another step toward quick salvation, and a giant stride it is indeed. So great the distance is that it encompasses that the idea that I place the future in the hands of God sets you down just short of heaven, with the goal in sight and obstacles far behind. Your foot has reached the lawns that welcome you to heaven's gate, the quiet place of peace, where you await with certainty the final step of God, which is your return to knowledge. How far are we progressing now from earth? How close are we to approaching our goal of remembering the truth of what we are? How short the journey still to be pursued? I have to fix a couple of things and I'll be right back with you guys. All right, that was the first paragraph. Here comes paragraph number 2. The journey is short at this point. Accept today's idea that you place the future in the hands of God, and you have passed all anxiety, all pits of hell, all blackness of deception, thoughts of sin and devastation brought about by guilt. Accept today's idea that you place the future in the hands of the Holy Spirit, and you have released the world from all imprisonment by loosening the heavy chains that locked the door to freedom on the world. You are saved, and your salvation thus becomes the gift that you give the world, because you have received salvation. When you have placed the future in the hands of God, in no one instant is depression felt, or pain experienced, or loss perceived. In no one instant, sorrow can be set upon a throne and worshipped faithfully. In no one instant can one even die. And so each instant given God in passing, with the next one given the Holy Spirit already, is a time of your release from sadness, pain, and even death itself. God holds your future as God holds your past and present. Past, present, and future are one to God, and so the past, present, and future should be one to you. Yet in this world, time's temporal progression still seems real. And so you are not asked to understand the lack of sequence really found in time, but you are asked to let the future go and place the future in God's hands. And you will see by your experience that you have laid the past and present in God's hands as well, because the past will punish you no more, and future dread will now be meaningless. Release the future, for the past is gone, and what is present, freed from past's bequests of grief and misery, of pain and loss, becomes the instant in which time escapes the bondage of illusions, where time runs time's pitiless, inevitable course. Then is each instant, which was slave to time, transformed into a holy instant, when the light that was kept hidden in God's Son is freed to bless the entire world. Now is God's Son free, and all the glory of God's Son shines upon a world made free with him to share the holiness of God's Son. If you can see the lesson for today as the deliverance this idea really is, you will not hesitate to give as much consistent effort as you can to making the placement of the future in the hands of God be part of you. As placing the future in the hands of the Holy Spirit becomes a thought that rules your mind, a habit in your problem-solving repertoire, a way of quick reaction to a temptation, you extend your learning to the world. And as you learn to see salvation in all things, so will the world perceive that the world is saved. What worry can beset the one who gives his future to the loving hands of God? What can he suffer? What could cause him pain or bring experience of loss to him who places his future in the hands of God? What could he fear? And what could he who gives his future to the hands of God regard except with love? For he who has escaped all fear of future pain has found his way to present peace, certainty of care the world can never threaten. That sentence again. This is paragraph 7, sentence 6. For he who has escaped all fear of future pain has found his way to present peace and certainty of care the world can never threaten. He who gives his future to the hands of God is sure that his perception may be faulty, but will never lack correction from the Holy Spirit. He who places his future in the hands of God is free to choose again when he has been deceived, to change his mind when he has made mistakes, and follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Place your future in the hands of God, for you call the memory of God to come again, replacing all your thoughts of sin and evil with the truth of love. Think you the world could fail to gain thereby, and every living creature not respond with healed perception when you place the future in the hands of God? Who entrusts himself has also placed the world within the hands of God, to which he has himself appealed for comfort and security. He who places his future in the hands of God lays aside the sick illusions of the world along with his own illusions, and offers peace to both himself and the world. Now are we saved indeed when we place the future in the hands of God. For in God's hands we rest untroubled, sure that only good can come to us. If we forget we will be gently reassured by the Holy Spirit's guidance. If we accept an unforgiving thought, the unforgiving thought will soon be replaced by love's reflection. And if we are tempted to attack, we will appeal to the Holy Spirit, who guards our rest, to make the choice for us that leaves temptation far behind. No longer is the world our enemy, for when we place our future in the hands of the Holy Spirit, we have chosen that we be the world's friend. That is lesson 194. Now I'm going to read the notes to lesson 194. This comes out of Tom's book, Understanding A Course in Miracles Workbook Lessons, How to End the Blame, Shame, Guilt, and Fear with Love and Forgiveness. And that's available on Amazon. I got some links to it and stuff like that. It's been very helpful for me to unlock A Course in Miracles. I started reading that blue book about 20 years ago, and I had a really hard time making any of it make sense. But slowly throughout the years, I've been reading this book over and over again, and I found that Tom's book really helped unlock a ton of it for me, just by making it real simple and straightforward. And then, here we are. All right, here are the notes from Tom's book. Thanks for joining us. Oh, there's some new people down here. Hi, Denise. If you guys are interested and you want to come up and share, we'll have a sharing session after the exercise that Tom's going to do after I finish the notes. So that's what we do every morning here at about 6:37, and I started late this morning, but I'm going to starting on time. In fact, I'm going to try and probably push it up to 6:30 so that we can be done by 7 and be on with our days. So we can really compress the start of this, what we really try and bake into this first 30 minutes and get on with our days so the discussion can be as long as we want. All right, with no further ado, here are the notes to lesson 194. I place the future in the hands of God. We believe that time is linear. Our world teaches that time is a logical progression that moves in one direction from the past to the future before we finally arrive in the future. From the past to the present before we finally arrive in the future. Let me read that sentence again. Our world teaches that time is a logical progression that moves in one direction from the past to the present before we finally arrive in the future. This is not so. This is the illusion that actually screws us all up. It's not the illusion that the whole world's an illusion. It's the illusion that we're actually stuck in this time and that it can block us from accessing the future in a particular couple of ways that these exercises can unlock for us. Okay, the past, present, and future are all available within your mind, since all belong to your world of illusions. To God, the past, present, and future are one, for God's will is eternally the same. God's will is that His beloved Son be happy. When you place your future in God's hands, you are at heaven's gate. You have accepted God's plan for your salvation and realize your ego's plans will not work. Now, you can cough. Now, when you place your future in God's hands, you are at heaven's gate. You have accepted God's plan for your salvation and realize your ego's plans will not work. Now you can eagerly await God taking the final step in your restoration to knowledge. By giving up your ego's plans for your salvation, you have ended your allegiance to a teacher who was always incapable of leading you to the promised land. It was foolish to believe that fear could be escaped within a thought system that was designed to make separation appear real. By placing your future in the hands of God, you've accepted the Holy Spirit as your guide and teacher. You have now chosen the thought system for love and forgiveness. Healing your split mind and reclaiming your divine inheritance are ensured. When you follow the Holy Spirit's guidance, there's no time for your egoic belief in sin, guilt, and fear. lack, limitation, and separation fade away before the vision of Christ, you no longer have to worry about obtaining some predetermined result that your ego claims is necessary for you to earn God's love. Now you're free to go with the flow, realizing that this moment is exactly where you need to be. The journey of reawakening can be enjoyed, not feared. If you stumble along the way, if fear raises its ugly head, or you make a quote-unquote mistake, the Holy Spirit will be there to correct your misperception and get you back on track. When you place your future in God's hands, you've also placed both the past and the present there as well. By accepting God's plans, your past beliefs no longer punish you in the present. Your ego's blame, shame, and guilt game has been replaced by love and forgiveness. Your fear and anxiety about the future also ceases, since your safe return is guaranteed by the one who walks beside you. With your past egoic beliefs reframed by the Holy Spirit, your karmic chains that previously bound the present to your past have been broken. Instead of the present being a replay to your past, you're now free to see each moment in the light of love and forgiveness. Your present is no longer a slave to time and fear. It has been transformed into a holy instant in which you can bless the world, your brother, and yourself with love and forgiveness. Because placing your future under the guidance of the Holy Spirit replaces all thoughts of sin and evil with the truth of love and forgiveness, this idea has become a habit. That habit will end the temptation and desire to argue for your littleness. When you place your future under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, your world ceases to be a place of fear and dread. Because you walk with God, your fearful world has been transformed into a friendly place of love and mercy. If God is, our question of the day is, if God is only love, why would you not want to place your future in the hands of God? Tom, are you ready?
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, it's all you.
So today we're asked to place the future in the hands of God. So what I'd like to do today is to maybe do a little meditation, really more of an exercise in how we might go about placing our future in the hands of God. And in this case, what we want to do is we want to perhaps look at our day and maybe even say, or as we march through it, or any events, see that when we place our future in the hands of God, what we're really doing is we're accepting all things, we're allowing all things, we're trusting all things, we're forgiving all things, and thus we're transcending all things in this time space continuum, this uh, grand adventure, you might call it grand illusion, of the idea that we could be something that we were not, that we could be separate. And ultimately, as we march through this, we'll transcend our belief in separation and get back to the uh, gate of heaven, or the truth of what we really are. So get in a comfortable position and just become aware of your being, your focus, your individuated aspect of consciousness that you are. Just become aware of that essence, that awareness, and that's not really a body. It's that energy. It's that spirit. Religions might call it their soul, but it's the essence of what you are. And just become aware of breathing in and being part of that oneness of all that is. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to place our future in the hands of God. So today, I make an intention to accept all things. When I accept all things, I realize that we all have roles to play. Everybody on this stage of remembering the truth of what we really are given roles to play. And so today I'm going to accept my role. And to accept my role, I simply ask my higher self, my connection with the truth, the Holy Spirit, what would love have me do? What would love have me say? What would love have me act? How would I use this neutral communication device, this costume that I need to complete my role? What is my role? So I'm asking for guidance from my higher self. I allow all things. When I allow, I'm going to be quieting that voice for the ego, because so often the ego, when asked, what would I, what should I do? My ego answers first. It answers for my rightness, why I need to try and enforce or impose my own egoic plan on my world. So today, I allow all things. I allow the roles, the act to unfold before me and not move into egoic judgment and think that Mary or Tom or Lee or Tamara or Joe is not filling their role. I allow each to follow their own guidance. No judgment. I trust all things. I understand that as time unfolds, we're moved through various acts. And I trust that the act that we're performing today is there being performed for my own learning benefit. The roles that I'm playing are allowing each actor to learn the lessons that they're designed to teach them. Everyone on their own perfect path, accepting, performing, fulfilling their role, all interlocking events designed for each one to continue on their own perfect path of reawakening. So I trust in the idea that I don't have to worry about what act we're in. I know the big picture, we're all guaranteed to reawaken to the truth. So I don't have to be involved in playing the blame, shame, or guilt game for myself or the other participants because I know, I trust that everything is unfolding perfectly. I now forgive all things. I now fulfill my function in this time space continuum. Time and space in this world of perception. My function is forgiveness, my purpose is love, and my destiny is the peace of God. I forgive all things because I realize that we're all actors, all fulfilling roles, all fulfilling our dharma, all fulfilling our own belief in karma, performing the various deeds that we need on our own perfect path. And therefore, I allow, accept, trust, and forgive all things as they unfold on this stage. Now, as I place my future in the hands of God, I transcend all things. I transcend this role, this idea that we're the costume. And now I move into that understanding that we are the actor, individuated aspects of that one self consciousness. I transcend the idea that I am a body, that I could be separate, that I could be a sinner, that I have to judge, that my ego, has a better plan than God's plan. I place the future in the hands of God because I accept the truth of what I really am. And as I transcend that, I realize that I am, that you are God's beloved child, perfect, whole, and complete, adventuresome aspects of the one self, ones that had the courage, the desire to enter into, to act in the grand illusion of separation so that we could demonstrate what love would have me do, so that we could learn and hone our skills and demonstrate forgiveness, our function here in this world of seeming hate. And I transcend that. And as I accept the truth of what I am, God's treasure, I place myself at the gate of heaven. God will take the final step and return me to the knowledge of the truth of what I am. And I am on that perfect journey. So today, as I place the future in the hands of God, I learn to accept all things, allow all things, trust all things, forgive all things, and transcend today as individuated aspects of consciousness. Make a decision to place the future in the hands of God. And with that, drop all our egoic plans and only ask that higher self, what would love have me do? What would love have me say What would love have me perform? How am I to complete my role in this act, in this play of reawakening sleeping minds to their spiritual magnificence as the Christ, reclaiming my destiny? And with that step by step process, today I place the future in the hands of God, knowing that God's will is that I be happy. Today, we place our hands in the future of God. When you feel comfortable with this exercise, just take a moment and try and integrate it with the role. Realize today we'll place that costume on that body, that neutral communication device, and we'll go about guarding. And guarding is really this idea of acceptance, allowing, trust, forgiveness, and transcendence. Today I will fulfill my function and drop all egoic judgment. Create a great day for yourself and your world. Namaste. The God in me recognize the God in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That was wonderful. That's just the kind of experience we need to kind of get ourselves jump started. I appreciate it. Remember,
uh, may later on because maybe you feel that today is not a good day for it, or yeah, we are always postponing things in some form, decisions or actions or mindsets that we left aside just because we're busy today or we are very complicated today. And the thing is that there's no other time than now. So meditation, for example, is something that I haven't been able to practice like a discipline in my life. Like I don't have a any structure of, well, at this time of the day I will sit for 15 minutes and meditate, or 20 minutes. I don't have that kind of discipline in my life. But the Course in Miracles and my process of experiences with it has taught me that meditation doesn't have to be sitting still in silence and do nothing for an amount of time. I mean, it is that, and you can get connected to that kind of situation. But you can also be meditative or meditate through what you do in this very same moment. If you are having breakfast, you can meditate by really placing your entire senses in what you're eating, looking at your food, tasting it really mindfully, smelling it, considering all the hands that had to work around this meal for you to be able to enjoy it, the plate uh, on, that it's on. The plate has also the energy and the hard work of somebody. And acknowledge those kind of things will always give you a different perspective of what it's going on supposedly in your life, because it plays your entire device of communication in the now, your body. It plays it now. So placing the future in the hands of God, it's learning how to be present every single day, every single moment in your life, because you don't get nothing by hoping to have things in the future or experience things in the future, but instead be present now and have faith that everything is sorted out by a higher power, because the higher power is not your enemy. It's your loving father, is your loving source, it's where you came from. So he has, or that has your back always, always. So we might seem to have, I don't know, a lot of work to do today, bills to pay, phones to do, phone calls to do, yeah, commitments, and those has to be there for a reason. But letting go means going moment moment by moment, knowing that we have to reach those kind of situations in, I mean, and do whatever it needs to be done, but without the fear, because you are not hoping that in the future you will be okay. It's just having faith that everything is in the higher perspective for you and others, and placing your mind in that higher power to trust that whatever you do with your time today is going to be okay. And even if you don't get to do all your to-do list, it will be okay. It is for a reason. It's something that if you lost an appointment, if you lost money, if you lost a deadline, think it of it like, I'm not losing everything. Whatever I lost, maybe it's not for losing myself. It's not to lose myself. Maybe I lost this, but in other areas, I get to do that thing, and place your mind in the moment. If you are writing something, if you are typing in your computer, be mindful what you're doing. Feel the body, feel your hands working. Be grateful for the for the experience of being able to use your hands. Be grateful in this specific moment, because that's how you build the muscle in your mind to move from hope to faith. You can always hope for things. I'm not saying that can that is a bad thing. I mean, it is something that we have in ourselves. We hope everything's going to be okay. But when you have faith, it releases the vision that you have for the future. It releases it for something that it has to happen in a certain way, and you just start to trust that everything that is going on, even if it doesn't seem to be in the right order, it's for a higher reason, and everything will be sorted out in some higher and peaceful way. So I place my future in the hands of God. It's having that faith instead of hope, and knowing that right now it's the moment for us to feel at peace. Right now is the moment for us to feel sustained, to feel at home. Today is the day to feel healthy. Right now, to feel healthy. I'm having this cold uh, that it's not really bad at all. I mean, I've gone through wars and I had COVID in the past too, and I'm just really mindfully feeling my body what it's aching. And when I focus my attention on what is supposedly aching, it's funny because the symptoms decreased. I mean, it's just like if my mind is doing anything else and I start to feel like a little bit low on energy or discomfort in my throat, if I place my attention in that specific spot of my body where I'm feeling the symptoms, then the symptoms doesn't seem so high. So whenever we really contemplate things, the fear goes away, the pain decreases a little bit, um, and it's a way to really heal ourselves. So placing the mind, focusing the mind in the now, uh, experiencing what it is that you need to experience in the now with faith is how we no longer have hope for the future, but trust that you will have a beautiful future or a good future, or that you are sustained for the future. Because sometimes there's no, it's funny because there's sometimes that you don't have any like huge ambition. It's just that you're afraid that you will not be sustained in the future, that you are alone. So we are not alone, and we will always find our way home because we are at home right now. So I wanted to share that.
When I place my future in the hands of God, a lot of spiritual types uh, look at this world as a place to avoid and not actively participate. What By placing your future in the hands of God, what you're really doing is giving yourself permission to
Dad, your mic.
fulfill your role. So uh, we can participate here, play our roles. Someone has to play them, and it's better that you play the role that's been assigned and do it without judgment, do it with love, do it the best. So if your role today is to be a parent, do it the best, do it with love. If your role is to be an employee, a worker, uh, someone traveling on vacation, whatever it is, just embrace that role and ask, what would love have me do it? And do that role as best you can without judgment. And just trust knowing that we're all helping each other, playing roles so that each one can learn the pearls of wisdom that experiences gives each one. So, you know, embrace the role that you've been given today and be in this world. Perform your role with the realization that being in the world doesn't require you to be an egoic judgment of how everyone is acting and whether or not they are following your egoic belief as to what they need to do. Just trust and allow and be the best actor, star, supporting actress, actor, whatever, in that act, that play that's being performed today. Thank you.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Tamara, good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to share about what you said, Adriana, and also, just sort of expand on something that Tom said. Because first of all, I don't know how much I like being called a spiritual type, but I definitely am. And you know what? I think for me, for a long time, the putting my faith in God was not. It's not that I wasn't playing my role. I understood about playing my role. And it was definitely like do the appropriate thing at the right moment, be where you are, kind of stuff like that. Very much influenced by the Bhagavad Gita and karma yoga and all that. But I think there was like a subtle way in which I wasn't making choices. Do you know what I mean? I was sort of like passively receiving the world and accepting what comes and kind of thing. And I wasn't, just sitting around and doing nothing and waiting. I was definitely embracing the moment in the best way that I knew how. But anything that had to do with like making a choice, like for the future, because I was like, God will show me what to do. I don't need to choose. I can wait to receive. But I feel like then I wasn't living as intentionally and as I think I'm meant to do, you know? So it's like a really subtle thing that I just want to contribute. And Adrienne,
No, in
I
fact,
love what?
yeah, I'm sorry, go. No, it's just that
Yeah,
you gave me the idea of, yeah, you were allowing the universe to do its thing, but you were not enabling the love around it. There's so many times that I have felt like that, that I'm just learning how to allow things to happen because I needed first to draw my resistance away from every action that I had around me. And when I did that, I really could see things differently and I could move from fear to love easily. But then I had that feeling, that same feeling that you just mentioned of, yeah, but it's like living the life without me. So what is it there? And you just gave me like this spark of word. Yeah, you can allow, but when you learn to allow things, that it's really good because you then are learning to surrender, or not surrender, but remove your resistance. Then you have to move the next step, that is enabling the love. You have to learn first how to allow God to be God, be the Father here and whatever, in order for you to be enabled to enable the love of God with everything that you do. So I'm really grateful for what you said. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if I didn't say those two words, I might probably forget it. So I had to
yeah.
jump in. So
No, no worries. I'm not. I'm not entirely sure what you mean about enabling God. So I want to say one more thing and then maybe you can explain. But for me it's like, so I've been and I saw Andy show up at the bottom, but I've been sort of doing with Andy this room on Monday nights, which is pretty awesome. The Neville Goddard stuff. So it's really just about what you think and how you feel is what is what shows up in the world for you, right? It's law of attraction stuff. And I feel like that is a principle of this created world. And so in some ways just we aren't entirely passive receivers. I mean, we are passive receivers of the created world around us until we become active manifestors. Um, and we know that what we feel shows up. And of course, like you're saying, Adriana, the goal, I mean, the highest is to feel the love and just to radiate it out and receive it and just be in this flow and accepting that whatever comes is that love, because like maybe this is what you mean, because as you're living in the experience of the love, that's what's manifesting in the material world, in this sort of like illusion of time and space. But yeah, so I think, for a long time for me with this, allow 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 God, or don't, sort of accept what comes. I can't remember the words of the course right now. um I was still being a passive recipient, and I was like, yeah, okay, if things didn't turn out the way I want, I'm like, okay, well, how can I see that that's, you know there's it's for my benefit, or there's love in that, or it's God's will, or like that. But I feel like there's some sort of activation for me that I need in order to be, um more fully manifesting the life that I want, and allowing that what I want is God given. And it's okay to want, because if I don't want, I can't fully live in exactly the way I think that this universe is sort of made for me to live. So it's a bit of a, I'm still working through it. So it's a bit of a, where I gave up my will to a power, that I perceive to be outside myself, but there is no power outside myself. And so yeah, so that's all I can say on that. Thank you.
That's why that's why we have to detach from the idea of wanting things. I mean, you can want things in this world. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. You can want things, but attachment of any kind to having a future experience or a specific thing in our lives, it's setting the course
It's
in a fixed way. So
it's not, but I'm going to
you
interrupt for a
can
second.
envision.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
okay.
not wanting things that you shouldn't have. It's how you want things. And I agree with you. Like, because I was in a, you know, a seminar once, Buddhist studies, we're reading Buddhist texts, Pali, we're learning Pali. And I remember there was a guy in the course, a PhD student actually in philosophy, but a former Buddhist monk. And he said, and it really struck me, he's like, there's nothing wrong with desire in Buddhism. You're supposed to have desire. It's it's part of life. What you're not supposed to have is craving. So
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
that's the
That is the
difference.
point.
Yeah.
Is the difference exactly? You have envisioning something that you think that in this duality will give you a good experience, and that's all you get. And then you go with the flow. You don't get too attached that it has to be like that, because in fact envisioning things is because they will provide you an experience of being alive, or being loved, or being at home, or whatever. So you don't get attachments to those things. You don't get to crave that specific thing that you envision, and you place it into the universe, like allowing everything to happen without a in a specific, like, craving. Like you said, you talked about passive being a passive receiver, but having this part of active manifestors is still like ongoing. That is because it is so hard for us to receive the love. We have been here running away from love. We are here because we are running away from love. So the first thing that our minds needs to break down is the idea that we don't deserve the love or whatever. So allowing things to happen without judgment, it's really hard, because how can you really think that if something bad happened to you, that comes from love? You don't think that, right? I mean, if you are in a bad experience right now, of course you are in fear, and then you get resistance to the experience, and then you get, if it's something that you did to other, then you get quiet and you keep to yourself all the shame, guilt, and blame of that situation, and you just keep yourself inside of you, and you withdraw from the world. or you just say, well, I have to meditate, like I have to go into a mountain to find enlightenment and be meditative for 1 year or whatever. But you are running away from life. You're running away from experiences. So the first part of allowing things to happen is that being that passive receiver that we need to be in order for us to understand that everything in this duality, it's our doing from the tiny man idea, but it's handled and it is directed from a source. So you will not be in a bad place at the end. So the future is not for you to hold. It's from the source. So when you are a passive receiver, you start to understand that everything that happens is yours, and it also comes from love in a weird way. Why in a weird way? Well, because your mind is twisted right now, and you're learning how to untwist your mind to see the love even when it seems like a conflict. So when you have that done, and when you have experienced this kind of switch in your perception, big switch of forgiveness situations, because remember that the book says in God there's no forgiveness, because in God nothing was wrong. So it is in your mind when you have experienced this huge forgiveness uh, actions or forgiveness situations in your life, where you really switch your perception on things so you could see the love instead of the fear, then you get to be an active manifester. Manifester of what? Not like saying, I'm going to touch this, I'm going to turn it into gold, but I'm going to grab this thing and I'm going to act like this is gold. Because it doesn't matter if it's metal, it is gold to me. I love it and it is worth it because it's part of God, because it has all the same qualities that God has made me. So being active manifestors is being a force of love in every single action. So when Tom says, for example, accept the role, is it doesn't matter if you are in pain, in conflict, or in lackness. Let's say that you don't have any idea what are you going to do with your life and that it's fearful. Let's get going with the shows. You are today um, in a position where you have to do errands, where you have to commit to the things in your work, pay things. Let's do it without that much fear or resistance to it, because it is every single thing that you do, it is just a manifestation in the level of the form of a separation idea. So you have to allow your role to be played in a mindful way, just you so you can activate the love in every single step of the way, and therefore the future that you are so um, um, attached to, like if it was your doing, you would let that loose in order for divinity, source, or whatever, God, show you that what you give is what you receive. You don't get to give unless you learn how to receive too. So you first have to allow everything as a manifestation of love and integrate it like part of you, that it's your doing, is receiving everything in order for you to give everything in the higher perspective possible. I don't know if this makes sense. I hope it does, because my language sometimes don't have that much words around it. But it's pa- being a passive receiver first to be active manifestors of that love. It's beautiful.
In the Gita, whenever Arjuna is with Krishna, is looking at those two armies and doesn't necessarily want to fight, saying that, uh, you know, all my friends, my uncles, I'm supposed to kill them. They're gonna die, and all this, and I, I, I don't want to fulfill my role. Krishna says to him, your role, or I'll use this word desire, what your dharma is, you're a warrior. Your role that you've been assigned today, that you desire, is You were a warrior. You're a warrior. That is your duty. That is your dharma. That's what you were, came here to do. And you need to do that duty. That the shame is in not fulfilling the role, your desire or whatever, and going through with that, realizing that on a big picture, it doesn't, we need everybody fulfilling their role, acting, performing, and that you can do that without, shame, guilt, blame. You can do that and realize that you are doing it. And with the Buddhists, it's, you know, the idea of non-attachment to the results. Play your role. See how the thing unfolds, but don't get attached to a particular result. Don't say that I need this particular result to make me happy or for it to be okay. You just play your role, participate full bore. You don't have to say, no, I'm not going to participate. I'm going to sit and observe. You can be active. Just don't get attached to the outcome. Realize that everything's unfolding in its own perfect place, and you know, give the role that's been assigned to you your full attention and perform it to the best of your ability, realizing that, you know, this is all part of that big picture of reawakening. And that's what we're here to perform. That's what we came here for. That was our role, that was our dharma, that was our purpose. And ultimately, our purpose, when we give that over to God, when we place our future in the hands of God, is that reawakening process. So we're going to play our role and trust that everybody's on their own perfect path and not have to second guess or look for some particular result. We just accept, forgive, allow, and transcend those things, realizing that the big picture level, everything's going to unfold perfectly. I hope that helps. Thank you.
I yeah, but I also want to add, like, sometimes your role is to be a pacifist and is to stand up and say, hey, I'm not going to do this. Obviously, um that, that didn't happen in the case of Krishna and Arjuna, um but I wouldn't discount that as well. So I think it takes some discernment, to know, and to really just check in, with your own inner guidance, to know what your role is in a given situation. And another thing with the Mahabharata war is that was a manifestation. Someone manifested that, right? Like, it's not, they did collectively. And I'm not going to get into the whole stuff that led up to it, but it's not just something that showed up on Arjuna's doorstep and all of a sudden he was there and he, just had to follow his role. It was a part of the creation of that scenario, with the feud with his cousin,
Yeah.
and I have
And,
some
and
theories on that, but I won't get into it.
yeah. And in regards to that, it's just, the first step is to ask ask for that inner guidance. What would you have me do? And not just assume that because you were born into, if you want to go to the caste system, original, it's not something that cannot be transcended or moved through. So, it's a situation of always asking that higher self, what would love have me do? And if you were born into the role, supposedly of a warrior, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is what you can still be if the guidance is there, a pacifist in that role. So there's no, it's not fixed in stone, so to speak. That this idea that that was I'm born as a child, that I have to remain a child. You can move through. You take on different roles, and you're always asking for guidance and then following that guidance, as opposed to this idea that my mother said I should be a doctor, therefore I must become a doctor, and then you become a doctor, and you really feel that you were meant to be a uh, you know priest or something. So it's always not necessarily assuming that the role that's been placed on you by society or others is your fixed in stone. It's always something to ask. So, you know, even though you might be born into, uh, a particular role, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't transcend that. It's always follow my inner guidance and just go with that, because that's what ultimately trumps all things in this time space continuum. That makes sense?
Hi. Um, yeah, that really does make sense. I'd like to say that I don't think we have to do anything. Our inner guidance seems to shine through. Even if we're doing something that somebody told us to do, like become a doctor, um, if it's not resonating within us, you know, at some point we're just going to lose interest. I mean, if we're forcing something ourselves to do something for the wrong reason, it doesn't have enough. It doesn't have enough to keep us in that. I was thinking, um, what I want always changes, and it's always unfolding. I'm understanding that I might want something right now, and that would be to understand something, and then maybe I understand it, and the next, whatever, let's give it a time frame, a couple days, I feel like I want something else, and so it's changing, and that was frustrating me for a while, because I was like, well, why am I not honing in on what it is that I want? Why is it changing? And that's because I'm getting some more understandings, and I'm open to the understandings. And so it may seem like I have no direction at times. And then I'm like, but like, these are the ways, like, and I've also experienced the things that I've desired, even if
Mm,
it's just in my um, in my imagination, and then sometimes that's enough, and and because I can see it's going in the direction of what I desire, and that I could have it, and potentially I'm like, oh, okay, I could have that if I continue to hold that, and then I'm like, okay, so the question of what do I want is always changing, and so, and yeah, and then I see that I can truly have what I want because I see the direction going that way, and that's just enough to say, well, now do I really want that? So it seems it's just always being tested.
In fact, there's sometimes when you go into yourself and ask guidance about something, and the guidance tells you no in that moment, and maybe a few days goes by and you still have like that mindset, or that mindset setting to that again, and then you ask again within yourself, and the answer could be yes, but it's not because the Holy Spirit has been playing with you, or you wouldn't he or you was hearing your ego, instead of your Holy Spirit is not that. It's just that there's sometimes that when you ask and you get a no, is maybe not now, and you have to wait and let things happen, allow the universe, uh, do whatever it needs to be done to put things in order for show you the way of doing it. So
Yeah. And
it's really
I just want to say, and I feel like that's what I am doing here. And that is exactly what, what I need to do here. Whether it's somebody else's path or not, it's like, in other words, if somebody else has the same, um, desire to do that here is to make things manifest and then to see them like not manifest, even just to keep going with that pattern of understanding that this is a material world. There's absolutely, it's me testing it and getting to know me in it,
Hmm.
or me as it.
I think you're steering your ship, and you have to get feedback from the ocean and from the ship and from the tiller and all these other things to be able to bring all that stuff together. You're dancing with life, and you're doing great. It's a constant kind of ebb and flow. Give it, you know what, the steering the ship thing works a whole bunch in a whole bunch of metaphorical ways, but everything comes in waves, and sometimes the waves are big, and sometimes they're small, and sometimes they can really capsize the boat, and they're dangerous. But most of the time, the waves are just kind of there just to show where the surface of the water is, to show where the ship is going to go on a horizontal plane, right? It's going to always be on this horizontal plane. We get to decide whether we want to go right or starboard or port. That's our choice. We can go starboard or port hard or soft, or anything in between. And you're steering your ship great, Andy. You're
Yeah. And
you're
all
the
of that.
abuela of our room.
Thank you. And nice to see you all, hear you all. It's all of it. All of it is perfect to navigate me. We all do our own thing. We all do it perfectly, and to answer our own quest, because we all have six different. We're definitely going in the same direction, but it's not. We're not going to get there in the same way. We have different roles. We have different. Quests along the way of learning, and there's none higher than the other. They're just, we're working things in our own way. I don't know how to, how else to say it, but
You
we're
said
obviously
it.
individuals. Yeah, we're obviously individuals in this sense that we express, and we express differently, and but not so much that we're not going in the same direction. Yeah, so it's like it's going to look different, and we're going to look at some people's path and even our own, and we're going to judge it as bad or good. But I mean, I like was listening
Well,
to
remember that
which
the
was,
judgment's always ego. If you
yeah,
waste your time judging, it's an egoic thing, and it just doesn't do anybody any good. We are in no position to judge.
yeah, and well, then again the judgment is this. I was listening to something called what are they called, the four something truths. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
And
it's okay.
yeah, and the four noble truths. And
Mm-hmm.
first, it's the ill being, which is something that we actually need to know, well being. And so, like, there are all these paths, and we ebb and flow, and we go back and forth into these until we finally see that the path to well being, we finally get some understanding of like that's the choice. And
I
then,
guess I would say that these are all paths, and it's your judgment right now to try and find your
right,
own path. But
yes,
all of these paths are valid, they're all truth, they
yes,
all
they have
help
to happen.
people in different ways. Maybe you used one tool now and a different tool later, and that translates into something different on your path. It's all metaphor for really seeking your own pure, unique path to God.
Hmm.
Everybody's got their own pure, unique path to God. The Course in Miracles gives a big set of pointers like a map, and it helps us problem solve our ego in time so that we can reduce the effect of the ego on our true paths and our true calling, because the calling is the Holy Spirit, and that tells us what to do in the minute to stay on our path so that ultimately we fulfill our life's goal.
But I also see that, like, it's inevitable to, we can attach to something and then realize it's gone. That's teaching us to not attach.
Sure.
So it's
Yeah, exactly.
inevitable. It's inevitable that we won't be able to attach, and that's coming from the understanding that is also unfolding inevitably. It's just fate. It's just the way it
I
is. It's
think we
going to
got a
happen.
choice in attachment, and certainly at any given point we can choose to attach or disattach, and some are obvious good choices and some are obvious bad choices. But I think it's our choice second by second whether we're going to hold on to one idea or the other, hold on to one physical
See,
thing or the other.
see the choice. That could be. But then what rises for me is that. Um, would I have made a choice if I didn't have a particular understanding? And the answer for me, I
Okay.
found, is no. The choice comes from an understanding. The choices are always
Mm-hmm.
in my understanding at the moment of what would be the best for me, whether it is the
Yeah,
best for
because
me or
otherwise you
not.
don't know what you're choosing from, right? You can't
Exactly,
know. Okay, yeah, that makes
exactly.
sense.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so why? So I can't force, I can't hurry something, I can't slow it down. It's inevitable, and yeah, and at least that's my experience here so far, and that's my understanding here so far. And then I guess we just keep, discussing these things and testing them all and finding our own way in our own. Because, like, I was thinking, even hearing someone else's story, I'm going to perceive it in my way, and then if I were to tell you the story, I put my own twist on it, not on purpose, but because that's what came up for me. That
Yeah,
was my
because you're
perception.
unique. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
your
because I
own
have my own
unique slice of
expression.
God. Yeah,
So
that makes a
yeah.
lot of sense, Andy.
So this is fun.
I heard
Sure.
the other day, I was seeing the other day a video that Luisa shared with me about an interview that Marianne Williamson made to Deepak Chopra. And I didn't know much about Marianne Williamson because, I'm not from the US, so I'm not so up to date with those things. And then I realized that she was running for president because Lee told me that, and it was interesting to see those two talking because she really was really curious about the idea of how can we be the change in the world if we don't take action like a strong stand in our beliefs, and how can we live our lives without participating actively in trying to achieve changes in our lifetime. And they engage. I will post probably the link to that and to interview because it really was really a good one. And it's interesting because the perspective that Deepak had on that, because Deepak has always been really honest in how he is in the moment, and with the years that has gone by in his spiritual experience with writing books and being this sort of guru, if you want to say it like that, she also asked him in which part of his life he was. And they engage in that interesting conversation that he was like in this stage in his life where he just wants to give back,